end to such a situation so that human beings live in harmony? Mr. Jeremy Jones.
Oh, look, there is so much dialogue, there's so much work being done at the moment in every country, in every situation where it's possible to have that relationship. In Australia, we obviously have a huge amount of Jewish-Muslim dialogue, and it's sometimes direct, sometimes in other contexts. If you go to the Middle East, if you go to the Holy Land, you see a whole network of institutions of people who are trying to have people-to-people contact and learning. So it is an enormous growth, it's a growth area. It's something that was hardly spoken about a few years ago. But I can tell you, it's the reason many people don't know about it is there are some people engaged in this dialogue who are fearful for their lives if it is known they're engaging in this sort of dialogue. And there are also people who say they would unfortunately not be able to do the work they do in their own communities if it was thought they were too close to people who are perceived as enemies. So it's very difficult, because what we would want to see as the moral exemplars for everybody to see as ideals sometimes are worried they can't put themselves forward because that would affect their ability in the long term to do work. The good news is a lot of work is being done. The bad news is much more needs to be done, just not now, but also well into the future.
Thank you. We're short of time. We have got Maghrib prayer soon, should be starting in 10 minutes, so we'll try to wind up, and we've got another poetry and three presents to give out.
Excuse me, question over there.
Yeah, just a minute. I've got another question. Just a minute. Let me handle it. I've got another written question. In the gist of this event, his initiative to make us understand that there is one God to bind us all, then this understanding also germinates the idea that if there is one God, then there has to be one religion of that one God. So I'm not sure whether it's a comment or is a question. So would you like to answer to this? Because it doesn't seem to be a question. Could be the question, there should be one God and there should be one religion.
I've got the answer. I've got the answer.
Well, depends on how one sees religion. You know, if somebody sees they are the only right people, they are the only saved people, then that's the conclusion you come to. But when we look at the Quran, Quran is, admittedly critical of Christian, Jews, what it considers polytheists, but it's critical of Muslims as well, in many places, as hypocritical sometimes and so on. Sometimes faith did not enter the hearts. So Quran criticizes what it believes to be wrong beliefs and wrong practices, but it gives exceptions. It's very clear in chapter 3, for example, 115 onwards, 13 onwards, it says, not all people of the book are the same. Amongst them you will find people who glorify and worship God, and in the middle of the night their works will not be in vain. Also, in another very important long verse in the Quran, where Quran mentions many prophets that were sent, and it makes a very important point that to all of you God has gave a way to see which one of you are best in conduct, and then God will judge you later to see who is right. Like, we shouldn't get into unending, useless theological discussions that highlight differences and ignores the fact that people are genuinely devoted to God. They genuinely want to make a difference in the world. God, leave it to God. Whatever God wants to do, He can do with them, forgive them or punish them, as Jesus says in the Quran. It's your servant, or they're your creation, your people. You can certainly forgive them. But having said that, I think I should also say that Quran is very clear on that God ultimately has a single religion in that the basic thought, the basic message is the same. That there's only one God, worship God, and do good. That's the core message.
I hope that answered someone's question. Now we'll take the question from the floor, and the mic people, can you just move around? Yeah, please, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tawfiq. I come from India. I've been living in Australia for a while now. The question actually arises because of a couple of experiences that I've gone through in Australia. And when Sister did actually talk about images, one of the incidences actually came to my mind. The image of Muslims. In a past profession, I was a door-to-door salesman, one of the most annoying professions for most of the people at the receiving end. Usually we are as door-to-door salesmen when I used to do that, we were pretty much mentally prepared that we're not going to be invited in, or we're not going to be, we may be looking at hostile reception. One of these reactions really still is something which comes to my mind every now and then. I knock the door, a lady opens the door, and she goes, "Oh my God." That was the reaction. And I couldn't do anything but laugh. And I said, "You watch a lot of TV, I suppose." The other thing which actually happened was very generous. A friend of mine who's a person who's very generous with his opinions. He just comes around and says, "Tawfiq, why do you Muslims hate the Jews?" And I was like, my lawyer is a Jew. These images that have been created in the media today, and this is something which I perceive as not really, it's not something which is anti-Muslim or anti-Islam, it's actually anti-religion in itself. My question to Mohammed, Professor, is that why do we actually hide ourselves from, we kind of prevent ourselves from speaking up the differences, essentially because most of the time, you see, one anti-religion post will actually get more likes as compared to the people in this auditorium. Because unity is as such boring, it's not good for the TRPs. We don't see them in the media. So, unless and until we don't do mass...
sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, the question is getting long. So, why don't we actually look more into the differences and bind ourselves while discussing the differences as compared to just talk about the rosy parts of one God and things like that, when we know fundamentally we're different?
Just a short answer is that to talk about differences, you need relationships first. And so the dialogue there's a phased approach. Like I've done it for 15 years, and I've seen people when they first time interact with Muslims, a lot of Christians, let's say, for example, we've got so much in commonality. So the commonality comes out, and we need that. We need that to relate to people, feel comfortable around them. But after a while, then you have the relationship to talk about differences. And we've done this home encounter project years ago, where we went to homes, Christian and Muslim homes, had discussions. One thing I realized this there. We've done this 3 times, and then there was a lady. She was new to the group, and by then we were really discussing deep, meaningful issues and key differences very comfortably without offending one another. This lady, she was new, she was Christian, she was really offended when I made comments, and because it was her first time, you see. So we need to first highlight similarities and commonalities, and then those who are really genuine, you can have a deep and meaningful discussion.
Do we find a lack of genuineness?
Sorry, we cannot have the discussions because we are running out of time.
There's a lot of good people out there. Yeah.
Best thing would be that